Financial Survival Network, helping you survive and thrive in the new economy. Go to CarrieLutz.com and sign up for 30 free micro trainings on financial survival.
$14.90 WGCH. This is Carrie Lutz. You're listening to the Financial Survival Network. Are you a baby boomer? Do you find yourself rapidly going through your savings because you really took a hit during the global recession, although some people call it a depression, and you're worried about what the future is going to hold for you because everything you thought you knew, the system that you were raised to participate in, is evaporating all around you. My next guest, Chris Duane, has just done a video that you need to watch so you can figure out a new strategy and a new way to protect your wealth and to protect your family. Chris, welcome back as always.
Good to be back. I heard our last show was pretty successful with David and I.
Oh, man, it's still getting rapidly downloaded. I think it's a great concept. What I'm hoping to do is to have you, BrotherJohnF, and Sean over at SGT come together for a roundtable about...
Ooh, that would be a very energetic conversation.
Yeah, well, you guys are really on the same page. You're all prolific, which is great. The other two, they actually have jobs and a career, and they're still managing to bang it out. And it's so important that we get as many outlets for free thought as we can. It doesn't matter if you agree with all of it or part of it. You take what you want and you leave the rest. But more importantly is you start thinking differently, because that's your only real hope in the new economy, right? Right, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that if you think like everybody else in a doomed paradigm, you're doomed yourself. I think it's the absolute most important thing people do is to start questioning, what's really going on. And if you think that, this economy is something that's going to... Whoops, here comes Jack.
All right. Well,
just hold on 1 second.
No problem. Go.
Where was I? Thinking outside the paradigm.
Yeah.
I think it's very important for people to think outside of the paradigm, especially if that paradigm is an inevitably doomed paradigm. And if people think that this recovery since 2008, that the recession's over, unemployment's going down, they're lying. You're being lied to. Unemployment, has supposedly fallen from 10% to 8.9% or whatever it is now. But that is a matter of fact that, they stopped counting 1.3 million people. And then the people that are hired, who do have jobs, the quality of jobs that they have are nowhere near what it was during the boom times. We all know this. And yet we still, somehow believe what these politicians and bankers are saying about what's going on. I think it's incredibly important to start questioning the reality, especially because we have one last shot here, folks, to get this thing right. And it's my belief that if you don't get this paradigm shift right from paper assets to real assets, it is a lifetime of misery if you don't get this one right.
And when you say the paradigm, so you're saying putting your savings, your wealth into paper assets isn't going to work out too well for you. No, and it hasn't for the last 10 years. This is or 12 years now. Since 2001, in reality, the real value of those dollars, those stocks, those bonds, those things that you have, even though the nominal price of the stock market, it's up there, in real terms relative to gold or silver or food or gas or oil or medical costs, it's dropped significantly. And it's a invisible wealth distribution that's going on here. And it's going to become very visible very soon because you cannot continue to print paper money ad infinitum without it destroying the value of the currency. And that's the big shift. The dollar is a mathematically inevitable failed currency. It's coming. And at some point, we're either going to have a debt that's so large that we have to default upon it,
or they're going to keep printing all the money out there, and it's going to make the dollar worthless. And, I put out this video today called Baby Boomers Last Shot. And the idea there is that the baby boomers have been hurt, probably the worst out of any generation financially, from actually having something. To many people that I've known, I mean, former, millionaires have lost all of their wealth. I mean, it's amazing the shift in wealth. And yet we haven't seen anything yet, folks, because the system is still relatively functioning. The lights are on, the stock market's going, the political system, people still believe in it. When this all goes down, folks, you're not going to have that. And it's going to be a very hard reality. And in this video that I put out, it basically says that the baby boomers are going to have the hardest time adapting to this new paradigm, even though they're the ones that seem to benefit off this paradigm right now. That they have the jobs, the savings, the wealth. They are going to have the worst time transitioning into this new paradigm, where real tangible things have value, mainly because they've had sacrificed so much for so little, and that when their paper paradigm evaporates, mentally, I don't think that they're going to be able to make the shift. I mean, waking up 65 years old and realizing you're broke and you got, everything that you ever worked for meant nothing. How do you come to terms with that? And yet the younger generations, like my generation and the millennial generation beneath me, we're suffering right now in this paradigm because of the amount of debt, the lack of jobs, the real opportunities out there, because the economy is choking on all this debt. This next paradigm is going to dramatically benefit the younger people, because they still have the energy and the spark. And once all this debt is relieved from the system, young people are going to be the big engines again. So in this video, I basically try to tell baby boomers, hey guys, the average baby boomer's got $88,000 in their savings and their retirement account right now. If you used even half of that money and bought 1,000 ounces of silver right now, that 1,000 ounces of silver, and I showed in the Silver Bullet and the Silver Shield videos, how that 1,000 ounces would represent, throughout all of history and even 2/3 of the world today, 10,000 days of hard human labor. And that the baby boomers really, in my mind, don't have any other choice but to be buying physical silver right now, as a means of preserving their wealth. Because if they hold it in any paper asset whatsoever, and I don't care if it's stocks, bonds, IRAs, pensions, insurance plans, real estate, anything that has a paper contract, counterparty risk, even cash sitting in the bank, will be destroyed. And they're going to be way too late in their life to make a second, third comeback. And I think I don't know how else to get this information out there, but I'm very passionate about this, obviously. And it's not just the baby boomers, it's everybody. I mean, the shift of wealth going from us to the rest of the world is very obvious. Yeah.
So if you're out there, you're 56, 58 years old, which would mean you were born somewhere between 52 and 1952, 1955, buy 1,000 ounces of silver is pretty much what you're saying. Yeah.
And it, for the average baby boomer, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Like I said, the average baby boomer's got $88,000 in retirement money. They still have, jobs for the most part. It's the cost of an average. I put a window sticker of the best-selling car out there, the Ford F-150. It's about $34,000. So, and then the other cool thing I thought in the video I would really point out is that it is conceivable for the average American, and trust me, I know that there's a lot of people are hurting out there. Even buying 10 ounces of silver is,
sure,
out of the realm of possibility. But we're talking averages here, and knowing that the average baby boomer's got $88,000. But I said that 1,000 ounces of silver, while is doable for most Americans, is an absolute inconceivability for the rest of the world. And that's who we're really competing against. Ever since they do all this free trade and NAFTA and all this other stuff with the rise of China, the reason why our jobs are being sucked away is because we're trying to compete with slaves in other countries. And that's why Ross Perot was right back in, 1991, saying that there would be a giant sucking sound of jobs heading south until the jobs in the wages in the United States equal that of the other nations. And man, the guy was right. I wish we had listened to him. And that's the reason why manufacturing jobs aren't coming back. That's the reason why, there's been a real wage decline in inflation adjusted terms and real terms. And it's never going to come back until there is a complete, upheaval in the system. And the only way I think that you can protect yourself is by buying silver, because the people that we're essentially competing against, they can't even conceive to buy 1,000 ounces of silver ever. It's like you're earning $1 a day, doing some of these things. It's a complete impossibility. And yet, for an average American, it is a possibility.
Yeah. It's interesting that Perot was such a flake, as it turned out to be, but he really had it right. And by being such a flake and getting involved in the process, he really hurt the country in the process,
I listen, 92 is my first election, and I was a big Ross Perot fan, and I didn't realize it. I had always been brought up as a Republican. And then, come the primaries, I think I voted for him, but when it came time, I actually voted for Bush. But man, I really fell for the false left-right paradigm where I was like, wow, well, apparently if I support any third party, we're going to get Clinton. And man, I just couldn't sit with that for 8 years. And that's when Bush came around. I was like, all right, here's a chance. We're going to vote for Bush. But, the reality is, Kerry, it does not matter who runs for office.
Totally not.
Clinton would have been no better than Bush. Bush no better than Clinton. It's one and the same. They're all bought, paid for paycheck players for, the more wealthy people. So I encourage everybody to, get out there and participate.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, just a shame. I remember that Perot, he had momentum. His message was resonating, and it was a wake-up call for the country. And because he was such a quirky character individually.
Yeah, and Kerry, you also don't know what kind of stuff comes behind the scenes. I mean, they're not getting too conspiracy. There are very powerful people out there, and I'm sure even a billionaire like Ross Perot, these guys have a lot to lose. You look at Warren Buffett, the richest guy in the world. He had his silver forced from him. What did the guy have? 132 million ounces. Yeah. And this is a guy who believes in permanent value and underpriced assets and just holding on to everything forever. And when we found out that he was that he sold his silver, the only thing that he said about it was that he thought it was a great investment and he let go of it too soon. Well, if you look at the timeline when he got forced out of that position, he had some very strong accusations of bad involvement with AIG. And it's way too coincidental that Hank Greenberg, the guy who ran AIG, got the book thrown at him, and Warren Buffett walked away with nothing. But at the exact same time, his 132 million ounces were sold, and within a month, SLV starts up. Exactly. And that's a great paper diversionary to keep people out of the physical market. So I'm a firm believer that these guys, if you can rise to a certain level, and you can play the game, but at some point somebody's going to come a knocking. And that's one of the reasons why I've been, kind of very concerned about Eric Sprott, because he's doing a lot of things I would love to be doing if I was a billionaire out there and I wanted to make some waves. But I just don't like the idea of him centralizing all this silver, because, at some point,
yeah, they're going to come in. The only good thing is that it's in Canada. And
it still doesn't matter.
But it's definitely vulnerable.
Yep.
No question. So on that note, we'll have to finish up on next week, where we'll talk about Gen X and Gen Y and how good they're going to have it, because all of us baby boomers are getting screwed. So anyway, just where do we find you again?
Don't-tread-on.me. You can also go to Truth Never Told on YouTube. We just got our millionth view 2 days ago. We've only been up there for a few weeks. We just hit 1 million views, which I think is pretty cool considering the the kind of information we're talking about. I'm sure if I put Jedi cats or girls dancing on trampolines, I would have been able to get 1 million views in a much quicker time. But we're discussing very deep conversations, deep issues, and we're trying to make it in a way that's accessible to everybody so that they can break through their mental barriers so they can grab hold of their future.
All right, man. Well, hey, sounds good. We'll talk to you next week and have a prosperous week ahead.
Take care, Carrie.
Hey, be good.